Everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to bake up a batch of bagels. We prepped our dough last night. We're going to put a couple of different seasonings on them. And then we are going to prep up some chicken and make some different cream cheese spreads to add in there. And then we'll make a salad and a fruit salad. So let's start by getting our honey in our water so that when then we boil them and bake them up, it's going to give them a nice kind of darker brown color to it. You don't need a whole lot of honey, just about like a teaspoon or so in there, but that's going to give you a nice kind of golden brown color to your bagels when they bake up. Otherwise, they'll have a paler color to it. Give it a good stir. Okay. And then we're going to boil our bagels for about 30 seconds on each side. So so last night we prepped up our dough and then we let it sit overnight, on the counter. And then this morning, like an hour or so ago, I shaped these guys up where I kind of make a ball and then poke my thumb through it and then I do the little twist and spread them out and then they kind of poof up again. You give them like a second little rising on them. And then we go to boiling them. You do about 30 seconds on each side and then we'll dunk them over and do the other one. And that's going to give you the nice chewy crust on your bagel. So very important to do this, otherwise you won't have a bagel. Okay, should be good. And we'll do that. And then we'll get this one I put in a little bit later, so I like to wait a few seconds between each one before we flip it over. You can boil it a little bit longer, which will make a slightly thicker crust, but I find 30 seconds is really all you need. Go. And you'll want to use like a slotted spatula to take these out so that you don't bring too much liquid with you. We'll give a nice shake and then we'll bring them right back here. And put them in. I always try to put the pretty side down first. That way they'll bake up a little bit nicer. Here, got them boiling up on there. Now, one of the tricks that I do is when I shape them up and I have them in there, I spray my parchment paper with a little bit of like a nonstick spray. So I have some like olive oil on there. That just allows it when I slide it in there to prevent any stickage because sometimes you can get a little tack on there and then it makes it kind of difficult to move them. And the sourdough is a little bit delicate, as in if you push it, it can kind of dent in. So doing that just allows you to be able to slide them off. Also, make sure your spatula is wet when you slide under there to get it.
Is there anything in the boiling water besides the bagels?
Yes, about a teaspoon of honey. That honey, so it's kind of giving boiling in a honey bath is going to give it a nice kind of golden color to it when you bakes up, which gives you, instead of a pale bagel, just a nice darker color to it on here. And then these bagels, they're made from, it's a sourdough base. So we used 150 grams of active sourdough starter with 250 grams of warm water. We added in about 10 grams of salt, 40 grams of sugar, and 500 grams of bread flour. And then we kneaded them up. And so it's not a super high hydration dough, which means you're actually able to knead it and work with it. And we kneaded it up and let it sit for about 10 20 minutes and then did a second knead and then we just covered it up overnight. And then about an hour and a half ago I shaped them up into bagels, covered them with a damp towel, and I let them kind of poof up a little bit more. And now we're boiling them 30 seconds on each side. And we're going to top them with our delicious toppings. And then we're going to bake them at 425 I'm going to bake them for about 20 minutes, but it's between 20 and 25 minutes. Okay. Let's get these guys popped. This one popped over. And we'll get our next one in just a second. I got that first one in a little bit longer. And it doesn't have to be the exact, it's just kind of in the ballpark. You don't want to just put them in and out, but in that 30 seconds, give or take a few. Pop that. Make sure when you are boiling them that you have them in a deep enough pot that you can dunk and flip over. I find that if your pot is too shallow and you can't dunk, it's really difficult to pick it up and flip it over. You're more likely to splash yourself. So the good dunk and flip works really well. So don't use a shallow pot. Okay. We're going to get this right here. And got our next one. Get rid of our hot water here. And let's get our seasonings on our bagels. So our first one, we'll do our classic everything bagel because again, this is our absolute favorite seasoning. Like my kids, my oldest daughter, she loves this. I'm just gonna sprinkle some in my hands. The bagels are naturally sticky, so you can just sprinkle it on and kind of rub it around for it. You could pick it up and dunk it if you want, but I find it's just easier to keep them on there and sprinkle it all the way around. Give it a nice little rub. I'm gonna do 2 like this. Here. And the nice thing is you can use the same base but have a whole bunch of different flavors just based on the toppings that you do. You don't have to have a bunch of mix in, but they can all have relatively different flavors to it. So we've got our 2 everything bagel ones. My next one, I'm going to do a kind of an Italian herbs and cheese. So we're going to sprinkle a little Italian seasoning first, then we're going to add in some cheese, and then we'll finish off with a little bit more Italian seasoning and then a bit of garlic salt. So we've got our Italian seasoning here, and I'm going to sprinkle it on, kind of coat it all the way around. We'll do it here too. Really get those flavors in. And then I'm using 2 types of cheese. I'm going to start with a softer cheese, which is kind of like it's a semi-soft cheese, but it has flavors along the line of Asiago and Parmesan, but it is not a firm cheese like them. And we're going to grate that on first. So this will have more of a melt to it, but we want it to kind of bake up and bubble and crisp. And then we're going to top it with some Parmesan on top of that, which was a little bit firmer cheese, which will have a little bit more of a, crunch to it. So we've got our cheese. We'll fill all the way around. Got to make all this goodness on here. So we've got a little bit of that one. And then I'm going to do a little bit of our Parmesan. And you could do all Parmesan or all of the other, but I like the mixture of it because they both kind of have 2 different textures and they both kind of bake up a little differently. And I like to put the Parmesan cheese on top because it almost acts like a protection to the creamier cheese so that it doesn't burn as easily. So we've got our nice good amount of cheese on here. And we're going to sprinkle a little bit more Parmesan cheese on, or not Parmesan, Italian herbs on top. That way you get it on there. And then what I find is the best to give you a nice flavor, we're going to add a little bit of garlic salt. So let me just reach over here and grab it. That gives you almost like that garlic bread flavor to it. You don't need a whole lot, but just a little bit to really kind of season it up. Here. And perfect. And then I'm going to leave 2 plain because we always have a couple kiddos that just love plain. And that way you can really go sweet or savory with our spreads on those. And then our last 2, I'm going to make it's kind of like that cinnamon crunch bagel from like Panera. It's our favorite here. So I'm going to get a little bit of butter. We're going to make kind of this crunch base that will crumble over using butter, vanilla, sugar, both brown and white sugar, and then flour and a little bit of vanilla. So I'm going to start with about a tablespoon and a half of butter. And then we're going to add in about a tablespoon of brown sugar. There we go. And a tablespoon of white sugar. A little bit more. And we're going to mix that in. We're also going to add in our cinnamon and our vanilla and some flour. And then I'm going to mix it together. And there we're going to add in about half a teaspoon of cinnamon because you want that nice cinnamon flavor to pop up. A few splashes of vanilla, about a fourth of a teaspoon. Makes a very mellow but lovely flavor. And then grab our flour here. About a tablespoon or so of flour. And if you have caster sugar or that nice decorating sugar, you could throw in a little bit of that. We're going to just mix in with our fingers and kind of pinch it into the butter. You want to use, you don't want to use melted butter for this because you want it to start to kind of melt in the oven as it's baking so that it doesn't crunch up too fast. It gets a little bit messy here, but we're just going to keep crumbling it through our hands until we've got this nice kind of crumbly mixture that we can put over the base of our bagels. There we go. We're just about there. We're going to divide this up and put it over our two to make two kind of cinnamon crunch bagels. Okay. And I like to make these a little bit farther away from my savory ones so that you don't get any sweet bleed over into it. Get this. And these are going to melt and kind of crisp up a little bit over. Some of them will stay crumbs and some of them will melt down for it. But it's going to be our bagels there. We have our everything bagels, our Italian herbs and cheese bagels, and then we have two plain on here. We'll get these in the oven to bake up for it.
Salted or unsalted butter?
I use salted butter, so anytime you see butter in this house, it's always going to be salted. Unsalted butter, it's like the worst thing when you make like a slice of bread and you have put butter on it and it's unsalted and you're like, what is this? Where is it? It has no flavor. Wash my hands. Okay. We're going to get these in the oven to bake up. Again, these are going to bake at 425 for about 20 minutes. You're going to bake them at a nice kind of higher temperature because they are sourdough. They are going to be darker colored because of the honey bath, but it doesn't mean they're burnt. It's just going to be a nice dark kind of golden brown to it. I'm going to set my timer I'm going to do 15 minutes. Then I'm going to rotate my tray around and do the last 5 minutes so that they can bake up evenly on both sides. So I'm going to put a timer for 15 here, and then we can rotate. Especially when you have toppings like this, my back of my oven is a lot hotter than the front, and so I want it to evenly crisp up. But you don't want to do just half and half with the time zone. It's more like 15 and 5. Okay, let's start getting our chicken ready to go in there for our savory ones, like our everything and our Italian herbs and cheese. We're gonna do some Bagelwiches. Essentially have our chicken and we're gonna have some bougie spreads in there, but have them flavor up. But let's get our chicken kind of seasoned and ready to start sauteing up. So I've got 2 fillets here of chicken. I'm going to kind of fillet them in half, make them a little bit thinner. That way they'll cook up faster. Try to go against the grain so that it will look like a rougher cut, but it's going to give you a more tender piece of chicken. And then if you have any bits of fat, just cut those off because they'll be rubbery on there. And look at this guy. And we're going to season. Let me wash my hands. We'll season these guys up. For our seasoning, I'm actually going to keep it really simple. We're going to use a little bit of Worcestershire, which will help break down the natural fat in the chicken to keep it nice and juicy. And then we're going to do garlic salt and Italian seasoning. So just really simple, and it's just going to play really well with the flavors of our bagels. So we've got some Italian seasoning. We'll coat it up nicely. We'll do some garlic salt. And then we'll flip these over and we're going to do the exact same on the other side. You always want to make sure you have it well seasoned so that there's lots of flavors throughout. You don't want bland chicken. Okay. And we'll get this. A little bit of Worcestershire. Now, Worcestershire is like a vinegar-based kind of seasoning thing. The main part of it is you're not going to have any vinegar flavor at all when you're cooking with it, but that vinegar cuts through the natural fat and it just leaves you with a much juicier and more flavorful chicken. So I know it might be a hesitant to try it, but it really does make a big difference. On its own, it tastes terrible, but when you cook it up, it is delicious. Here. Nice kind of coating, and then some garlic salt. Here we go. I'm going to get my pan. You know what? I'm going to actually bring this over here so that we can actually cook our chicken over here. And that way I have room for my stuff prep over there. So we're going to start heating up this pan. Once it's nice and hot, we'll drop our chicken on it. Don't ever try to cook your chicken in a cold pan or cold oil because you won't get that nice sear on it. So about a tablespoon or so of olive oil in here. I'm going to heat it up to about on a 7, so like a medium high. Once it's nice and hot, we'll drop our chicken in. Okay, while we're waiting, let's whip up some different cream cheeses that we're going to have with our bagels. So let me grab a couple bowls here. We'll have our regular, and then I'm going to do like a pesto prosciutto and cheese spread and a cinnamon honey pecan spread. Now, you know how you can always like get cream cheeses, different flavored ones. I am the fan where you just buy a big tub of cream cheese and you can add your mix-ins and you can get so many flavors to it. That way you can change it up and you don't have to commit to a whole tub of garden veggie or strawberry or whatnot. You can make it your own.
You have a question? Are all Italian seasoning blends essentially the same?
Pretty much. Some can be, the main one that you get from like McCormick, your whatever, those like Tones and those basic spice blends that you get from your grocery store. Those are, yes, the same. Now you can get bougier ones that are slightly different, and some of those might be a bit more spicy or hit notes on there. But in general, the basic Italian seasoning is the same all around. It uses the same sets of spices. Some might be more heavy on like oregano or basil, but yes, in general, they're about the same. Okay, for our first cream cheese that we're going to do, our bougie, we're going to add in a little bit of pesto on here. About a teaspoon. Pesto has a lot of flavor, so a little goes a long way. And then we're going to chop up some prosciutto. Prosciutto, pesto, and Parmesan. It's the triple P's. Got some leftover prosciutto. We're just going to use the rest of this. Prosciutto is so delicious. We're going to dice it up because we don't want super big pieces in here. And we'll add that in there. Again, dice it up so that will mix it in there nicely. But it will add this nice kind of saltiness blend throughout your cream cheese. Think about, like, you can always put like bacon or ham or salami in your, cream cheese, but prosciutto is also delicious as well. It's a smoother texture, so you won't notice it as much because it blends really well, but it is lovely. So we've got our prosciutto. And then I'm going to grab my little cheese grater over here, and we'll do our Parmesan cheese. So we have our 3 cheeses, or our cheese, our 3 peas, and then some freshly grated Parmesan, which you'll get notes of that because pesto has Parmesan in it a lot of times. So I already have a little bit of notes of that in there. And I want about a tablespoon of Parmesan in there. Freshly grated if you can, because it's a little bit softer than pre-grated, but either one will work. There we go. So that should be close. And then we're just going to mix it up. So that pesto will give it a nice kind of green color to it. Let's slide that down. There we go. On here. Perfect. But you'll get that hints of basil. This one is actually, I think, is going to be delicious on the Italian herbs and cheese bagel with our grilled chicken on it. Okay, let's get our chicken on here. Give it a swirl. Toss it around. I'm just going to turn it down to about a 4. Let it saute on here. We're going to just do 2 pieces at a time because they're kind of big. We're going to sear them off. They're going to cook a lot faster because we have them filleted in half, so they don't take quite as long as a big, thicker one, but that means they'll cook faster, seal in their juices, and stay a little bit more tender here. We're going to sear it off. We'll flip it over, sear it then, and we'll do a second round on it. Our second set of cream cheese, or next one we're going to do, is our sweeter one, which I need to grab my honey and my cinnamon from over here. And this is going to be a nice kind of sweet one, which will taste delicious on both the plain and my cinnamon crunch one. We're going to add a little bit of honey, which will be kind of the sweetener to it. You don't need a whole lot. You don't want to make your cream cheese too runny, but about a teaspoon of honey. We're going to add in about a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. So a good couple shakes. And then I have some pecans, and we're going to chop them a little bit finer. They are chopped pecans, but I'm going to chop them a little bit finer. Just going to get some of this Parmesan cheese out, because I don't want really big nuts, but more kind of slightly finer nuts in here. We want about, for the make, I want about a 4th cup because I want a good amount of nuts in every bite. I'm going to just wipe off my prosciutto off my knife. Let's see if we're about ready to flip our chicken first. not quite, just a little bit longer. I want it to be a little bit more golden in color, but almost. Rotate a little bit. Okay, so for our pecans here, chop them up. You could always do walnuts too, but I find pecans have a slightly sweeter taste to them. Walnuts have a kind of nicer raw taste to them, which I do love to do walnuts, but pecans are lovely. We're gonna mince them up nicer, or nice and fine, so you have like little chunks everywhere on here. You don't want any too big ones, just makes it a little bit the ease of eating a little bit nicer. And then we're gonna mix them in here with our honey and our cinnamon and then our cream cheese, and we'll mix that up. And we'll have our pecan, honey, cinnamon spread, cream cheese base for our kind of our plain bagel or our cinnamon crunch bagel. But see, it's like you can easily make spreads that you can add on without having a whole bunch of different ones. And it's just nice to be able to add a little bit of flavor and extra, but I'm not committing to 8 ounces of a tub, 8 ounces of a flavor. Okay, let's get this chicken flipped. Beautiful. Gorgeous. So I've got our first set done. We'll get our tongs out for our second. While those are cooking up, we are going to work on our salad and make a salad dressing because that's kind of be our side to it. We've got our Bagelwiches, our salad. We're going to do a fruit salad too as well. But we're going to go through my youngest daughter. She loves salads and she's always been like, can we have a salad? Can we have a salad? I was like, we can have a salad. We can have a salad. So let's get out. We're going to throw in. So we'll get our romaine, lettuce, and then of course, the Holy Grail. We washed up our tomatoes and we're gonna slice them down. That way you can make your tomatoes last a little longer when you put them in a salad. You can keep them whole, but if you slice them up, you get more tomatoes in every bite, which just, it's a little bit nicer if you're like me and you absolutely love tomatoes. And I'm always the one who typically eats all my tomatoes out really like in the first few bites. So cutting them up allows them to spread out a little bit more, and they soak up your salad dressing, which gives them a bit more flavor. Ooh, almost a runaway one. There we go. We'll get these. And then I have a baby cucumber on here that we'll add in. So we're going to take the top and the bottom. We'll slice it right down the middle. And then we'll do little halves because it's not a very big one. Now, if you're using like the big regular cucumbers with the stiffer skin, give that a quick peel because that skin can be kind of firm and chewy and doesn't translate as nice in a salad. I like either the baby cucumbers or English cucumbers. They have a little bit more of a delicate skin on them. Okay. Whoop. We've got our cucumbers in here, and then we're going to add in some red onion on there to add a little bit of a crunch to it. I've got a nice red onion that's been with me all week, about down and out of it. Take off the top and bottom. And then we're just going to dice it up nice and small. I find a little bit of red onion adds a lot of flavor and a crunch, a really nice crunch to your salad. And then we're going to whip up a salad dressing to go on it. I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse. But while we do that, let's go rotate our bagels. We can take a sneak peek at them and on there. Okay. We're going to rotate them around. And flip them. While they may look done, they're not done yet. You want them to cook a little bit longer to get a little bit darker. You see how these back ones are darker? We want that on the back as well. So we're gonna flip here, and I'm gonna add a little bit more time, about 5 more minutes on there, so that they get this nice kind of darker brown color to it, because you want it to cook all the way through, because again, it is sourdough. Okay, I think our chicken here is done. We'll take off our things. Nice, beautiful, cooked through. We're gonna move them off onto our pan, and we'll add in our next pieces of chicken to sear off. There we go. These will be for our little bagel witches, which will add a lot of great flavor in there. You know, you put it on there, you put it with your cream cheese, and I've got some smoked mozzarella that I'm going to add with it. Let's whip up our salad dressing. We're going to do kind of a creamy balsamic vinaigrette, like an Italian seasoned balsamic vinaigrette. So we're going to start with my olive oil. And we're going to do about 1/4 cup of olive oil.
Hey, you have a question? How do you know the chicken is done without tempting?
I give it a little tap with my spatula, and if I feel the firmness, I know it's done. I also know about the same time and the look at it. I fillet it through so it's thinner, so it's going to cook a lot faster. But when you feel it, it shouldn't have a squish to it, so you should know that it's done. And we're going to add in a big scoop of mayo. This is what's going to make your salad dressing kind of creamy. You want equal parts mayo and olive oil on there. So I had about 1/4 cup of mayo, 1/4 cup of olive oil. We're going to add in about 1/4 cup of balsamic vinaigrette. And then where's my Italian seasonings? Right here. We're going to add in about 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So it's kind of like a balsamic Italian, creamy Italian dressing. And then I always like to add in just a little hint of garlic salt, not much because the mayo is going to add a bit of saltiness, but you want to be able to season up that olive oil and vinegar part. We're going to add in about a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt. And then we'll give this a good shake. And we'll have our creamy Italian vinaigrette here. So like Italian balsamic vinaigrette. And you could use a different vinegar. You don't have to use balsamic, but I love the flavor of balsamic for this. So we'll have that ready for our salad. You can look in there on there. So it's got a nice kind of runniness to it. It's not too thick. So it still has that vinaigrette feeling to it, but you get the creaminess from the mayo as well. Okay. Got our salad. Let's whip up our fruit salad. Our bagels will be done. Let's check our chicken here. Let me flip these one last, see if they're ready to flip. Just about. Beautiful. And let's get a bowl for our fruit salad. And we can actually head over to grab our bagels out because it is just about to beep, which is kind of perfect timing because they'll have a chance to sit and cool off while we prep up our fruit salad, and then we can serve up. Gorgeous. So here are our sourdough bagels. We've got everything bagels, Italian herbs and cheese, our plain, and then our cinnamon crunch bagels. Add this, slide that right over there. I'm going to give them a chance to kind of cool off here. That way, when I cut them open, they won't be super, super hot. It's so hot. Yet you, just like with sourdough bread, when you take them out of the oven, you don't want to serve them right away. They need to steam off for just a few minutes. That way they're not gummy inside because it's the same process on there. But we'll have this nice, beautiful crumb in there. We'll show you in just a second here. So let's get our fruit salad ready, and then we can serve up our breakfast. We got some strawberries here. Give them a quick rinse. And then we're going to do our golden kiwis, and then I have some mandarin oranges. Now, strawberries are out of season, but there is, if you add about a half a teaspoon of sugar, sprinkle it over like a whole pound of strawberries or however much this container is, it's going to cause the strawberries to sweat out their natural juices, which will enhance their flavors, which will make them taste a lot sweeter. But you're not adding so much sugar that it's making it, it's just a negligible amount, but it really does enhance the flavors because it causes them to sweat out their natural juices, and it gives them just more flavor. It enhances it. So that's what I always do, especially when it's not peak strawberry season time, or you get strawberries that have a lot of white in them. Just a small amount. It's really small, and it really does enhance the flavors. It's the same thing like with mushrooms. If you add a little bit of salt, it starts to sweat out their natural juices, which brings out more flavor in it. Okay, one more. We're gonna give these a little sprinkle of sugar. So I just little sprinkle over like this. That's all you need. And that's going to make a big difference in the flavor of your strawberries. Give them a little stir to kind of coat them up. And in a little bit, you'll actually start to see them shine a little bit more. It's like it opens up their strawberry pores. Okay, we've got our strawberries. Let's get our golden kiwis. I swear, I had never heard of a golden kiwi until a couple years ago. And now, you see them everywhere. But my husband and I were rewatching a show from like the early 2000s, and it was, they're on like another planet and whatnot, and they found this fruit, this alien fruit, and they're like, it's like a kiwi, and it's golden kiwi in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Back then when I first saw that, I was like, oh, how did they do that? And I'm like, we literally have golden kiwis, and I just didn't know about it. And they were just using something that seems so foreign to us because we just didn't know about it because it wasn't grown here normally.
You have a question? Can you go over the bagel flavors?
Yes. So our ones here at the bottom are our cinnamon crunch flavors. So they have kind of this cinnamon sugar crunch topping on them. We have 2 plain bagels, 2 Italian herbs and cheese. So they have Italian seasoning, an Asiago and Parmesan cheese on it. And then we have 2 everything bagel seasonings. And let's get our chicken here is done. So I'm going to pull off our chicken and have it sit here. When you do cook up your chicken like this, always don't cut into it right away. Let it sit for about, a few minutes to let those natural juices, stay in. If you want to chop it up for a salad, again, let it sit for about 5 minutes and then cut it up. Because if you cut it up too soon, what happens is all those natural juices come out, and then it will be a drier chicken. Okay, we've got our salad just about done. And then our bagels should be ready to cut open. You just don't want to cut them open too early, because if you do, then just like with sourdough bread, you'll get a little gumminess on it. So we'll get our mandarin oranges here. We'll put it in there, and we'll have our fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. That song is stuck in my head. It's been stuck in my head for like 2 decades. So catchy. Here, we'll get this on. Wait, one more. And then it will be time for us to build our sandwiches and our Bagelwiches. We can serve up our salad and our fruit salad and have a delicious lunch.
You got a question? Do those oranges have seeds?
No, they do not. That's one of the things about mandarin oranges that I really love is about 99.9% of them don't have seeds. There is always occasionally one that you might get. I have had one seed once in my entire lifetime, and it was shocked me because I've never had seeds in them before. But they typically don't have them on there. I'm gonna
Unless you've got 1,000 oranges.
Yes, I've had 1,000 oranges in my lifetime. I'm an orange connoisseur. You should know that. I don't know. I probably had, if you think about it. 37 years old. That's not that many oranges a year to eat. Okay. And we get gifted those oranges every spring. I'm really hoping for my box of oranges soon. Let's get this ready to serve up our deliciousness. Let's get tongs for our salad. And I've got a spoon for our fruit salad. Got that. I need a bread knife to cut our bagels and a plate to serve. Now the trick here is not burn myself. They should be hopefully, yeah, you know what? They're pretty cool now. Okay. Decisions. I'm going to do an Italian herbs and cheese because I want the pesto one, and I think that's what's going to be delicious. So that's the bagel we're going to cut open and serve up. But we have our Italian herbs and cheese bagel here. You see nice kind of golden crust here. We're going to kind of cut into it. I'll show you guys the nice, beautiful sourdough middle. Look at all that beautiful crumb on it. And break that last part apart. We are going to add in our prosciutto, pesto, and Parmesan cream cheese. Add a nice, big, flavorful on. You gotta put a little on both sides, guys, because that's where all this delicious flavor is going to come in. And then we're gonna add a slice of our sauteed chicken on here. Got our beautiful Bagelwich. So delicious. And then we will serve it up with our fruit salad with strawberries, mandarin oranges, and the very, very exotic golden kiwis. And our garden salad with a little bit of our homemade creamy Italian balsamic vinaigrette for just a delicious and simple Sunday Bagelwich brunch. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our bagels of all kinds. We've got everything, Italian herbs and cheese, our plain and our cinnamon crunch bagels, as well as our chicken and salad and fruit salad. And you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our cooking gear and gadgets in there. I've got my cutting boards, my pans, my pots, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today.